All right. I'll call the March 20th DRB meeting to order. First is agenda changes. I know of none. Board members can review the minutes of March 6th.
I was just noticing under the decision deliberations for both Catamount Malone and Bruce Wheeler, it says the board voted 6-0 in both cases, but Greg and Rolf both abstained. The numbers don't seem to add up
Well,
there.
we do have, sometimes we have like 9 people participating.
Okay,
Alternates?
as long as that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, the alternates
what?
filled in, I guess that's the answer, right?
2, 3.
Yes.
Maybe in the future we
Okay.
can just clarify that
all right.
going forward.
I didn't see anything else.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, up next is Mark Reed and Michelle Mayor Reed. Yes. Conditional use review for an expansion of a non-compliant structure. Now, this came before us before, right? I believe,
A different
application
proposal.
years ago.
Yeah,
but same house?
Same property, but different, this is a totally different setup from what was there years ago.
Okay.
That decision has nothing to do with tonight's.
No, because they never got a building permit and that expired. So this is totally a brand new one.
So that's the one where they're gonna take it down to the foundation and rebuild, right?
Correct.
And so it never happened. So it's the original house that we looked at years ago. Okay.
All right. I don't know, do we have a mic or do,
Just go ahead.
just go ahead?
Yeah.
All right.
I promise to be silent.
I wish I could. I thank you guys for letting us have the opportunity to talk to you about our changes in this property. If you've read the report, I don't have really anything to add to what was stated in there, except to kind of reiterate some of the points there. We are reducing the footprint and moving further from the lake. The small areas to be developed within the setback are the 2 places there, white squares beside the.
oh, yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
That little area and that little area, which is the new porch, which is actually further back than the current deck, which is that other square area there.
Okay.
So we were actually moving back from there. We will be reducing the impervious surface. We're removing a cement sidewalk that runs from the house there right down to the lake. We're utilizing the existing well, septic, and driveway and utility access, so no changes in that. We are anticipating no impact to the properties on either side of us, other than during the construction and replacement, but that's no different, I think, than what would go on.
So question, you're raising the roof line from like 20 to 29 feet?
Right, currently, right now.
So, 2 questions. Are there, I know you're down low and maybe nobody would even be obscured by the 29-foot elevation. 2 questions though, are neighboring properties impacted by the increase in the roof height? And secondly, from the lake or surrounding areas, is the higher roof line going to significantly impact the view shed?
I would not think so. That would be my opinion. I don't think, right now it's a flat roof that's up there. This will be.
Well, I mean, there are 2 issues. 1, neighbors, and 2, say,
Yeah.
for example, people
Yeah.
on the lake. They don't want to see a massive, barn that
This might
suddenly
help.
wasn't there.
This may help here. This is the location plan. Let me just come in here a little bit. And I think this kind of shows you have a house that's, we'll use the, this is the applicant's residence that they're tearing down and putting back up. There isn't any residence back over here
The other
Is that an
residences,
empty lot?
this is actually
Yeah.
one property here. The way these properties are are situated, they're these long, narrow properties. A lot of them put their septic systems and such up in this area. So you have, everything else would be to the sides as opposed to from behind. That would be close.
And then from the lake, what's it gonna look like?
I think there's some
We have
elevation.
had applications where we've seen schematics from the lake.
I think there's some elevations in the package, aren't there?
Yes.
I think I looked at some. Yep.
Well, this package here has, let's see.
Yep.
They have
Yeah, but
these.
I'm talking about from the lake.
From the lake would be the left
Screen
end on this
Yep,
one.
there you go.
Yeah.
Bottom right.
That one.
Yep.
So,
And it's, it's a hill there, so I don't believe from the lake that it's
So what's
going to,
between the lake and that?
a lawn.
so you said that in terms of impervious area, the new proposed is less than, due to the
Than
fact
what
that
it
you're
is.
eliminating that sidewalk insofar as the house itself is concerned. Is it-
It's about the same square
It's
footage.
about the same size? So
And
it's-
as you can see, there's some
Yep.
large decks and overhangs there that are going to be going away as
Okay.
well.
So the porch that you're proposing on the lake side of the house, there are two portions of that are an enlargement that sit within the lakeside setback.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which would be about maybe 4 square feet just in front of
Basically
where.
that corner on
Yeah.
both sides.
Right.
Isn't the whole project within, or a significant portion of the project within the current setback?
Yes.
And so are you demoing is this, the existing house is getting taken down, you're taking the foundation as well?
Yes.
So how is this considered an expansion if it's not new construction?
They're adding,
Those two.
Yeah, but you're demoing an existing building and including the foundation and building a new structure. So how is in the city zoning, in the town zoning, how is expansion defined?
that's a good question.
Usually it's grandfathered in
Yeah.
most, that footprint is grandfathered. And because those two modest squares, say for example, the white squares on either side of that porch, are set back further from the lake, and because the deck, I presume, is a footprint in that setback, they're not making the setback condition any worse, they're improving it mildly,
I would
And
get,
also
I would get
add-
it if it was
a renovation.
yeah, if it was truly an expansion, because that's how the zoning reads.
Actually, if they wanted to rebuild the house within the same footprint, they actually would only need a zoning permit for that. It's only when somebody comes in and does a rebuild where they're expanding in some particular way that's in the setback area. If they were expand outside this,
If you were in compliance with the setback rule, I would agree with that. But if you're not in compliance with the setback rule, you're not in compliance with a setback.
So we've interpreted expansion to include replacement. Because you can play all sorts of games with, tearing down parts of buildings and calling it expansions, but the reality is that as long as you use the footprint and don't make it more non-conforming, that's kind of been the
measure.
measure,
Well,
right?
Andy, our regulations on this have actually changed in the last 10 years. Can you re-articulate for me exactly what your concern is about the legalese of this?
The concern is just that it's an expansion. I don't think it's an expansion. It's basically new construction. You're tearing down the existing building, including the foundation, and you're putting a new building there that doesn't meet the current setback requirement. So I guess the question is, in looking at the zoning here, that it allows for approval of non-conformance for an expansion, not new construction. So, and
To my mind, I would construe expansion to include new construction. It used to be we couldn't approve anything that was more non-conforming. And we're dealing with issues about whether they're extending the face along a non-conforming boundary line, but it wasn't getting any closer, and we said that was okay. And here, they're actually getting farther away, and and also now we have discretion to approve it as a board. 15 years ago or 10 years ago, we didn't have any power to approve that. Now we have the power to approve expansions of non-conforming uses at the discretion of the board, provided certain criteria are met.
And in this particular application, excuse me, in this particular application, there is a smaller footprint in the, within the setback area, or I should say it doesn't meet setbacks.
I get all that. I guess just the point is when there's opportunity to meet, it's basically new construction, there's opportunity to meet a setback requirement. The flip side of all this would be, why aren't we meeting the existing setback requirement? And
I guess the subtext of that is the shoreline district and the areas there, and we've been dealing with improvements that in some ways improve the setbacks, in some ways they don't encroach, but they can expand irregularities, but generally they're improving the district, and I think most people living around there are in support of these.
And a lot of times, there's infrastructure that's with the house, like where the water, where the septic happens to be, in this case, where the driveway happens to be, that are looked upon as, grandfather type situation.
So your point is, why not make it even more more conforming by moving it back to the front yard setback from the,
I just think it's worthwhile to ask the question of where it's basically new construction, and I'm assuming there's a reason for a setback from a body of water.
But it's also, in this particular case, you do have some significant grades coming from Pine Shore Drive to the house that are difficult to build in. So that's the whole idea of a lot of these existing lots are very difficult in the way that they, or I should say, were limited in terms of their development in the way that they were set up, and there'd be some real strong concerns about trying to create properties like that today.
And I believe if we did have to move that back into the setback area, we'd have to re-drill the well, which is sitting right behind kind of where the house is now, between the house and the road.
The truth is, Andy, you may be right. A lot of these were just seasonal camps 30 years ago, and now they're being transformed into year-round houses, and they're trying to jam these into the regulations, and sometimes there's a little bump there.
so we've interpreted the footprint to be grandfathered. That's the,
I think the regulation
Yeah.
says it's, you can always build on the footprint.
I don't know if it's specific to that,
I
but
don't think it says that.
Actually, if it's built on the footprint, it just needs a zoning permit, or I should say within the volume of what exists. It just would need
the only reason the application's here is because of the two little corners. Is that true?
Yeah, a tiny little bit. There's a
Slight
tiny-
sliver on the
Yeah.
north side.
Huh,
Yeah.
There's a sliver here and these
On the other
quarters.
side.
Actually, the distance here, it's about 1 foot wider than, it's 28 feet versus 27 for the existing.
Yep.
So you've got an area here, you've got a
Yep.
little sliver area here of each about 6 inches. And then you've got these sections right over here.
hence the expansion.
Plus, there's an area over here that's going from about where the existing is like 20 feet going up to 29 feet because instead of having a flat roof.
Yep.
And, yeah.
I mean, you're right, Andy. I think that this situation varies from community to community. And I think what Greg was alluding to, which is that rubbery road where renovation, reconstruction, new build, and there's so many wiggle spots that I think just sort of saying, okay, the footprint is grandfathered, we're going to deal with it that way. And if there are improvements to the non-conforming conditions in that footprint circumstance, then we're inclined to say yes.
And not only that, part of it is that this is a warned hearing. So if there's members of the public who have concerns and think that this shouldn't go for a particular reason and give a different perspective, they have the opportunity to say so.
I was going to ask the same question, whether or not it couldn't move back, because when we looked at it before, the reason that they stated was because they were not tearing out the foundation, they were rebuilding on the existing foundation. So that kind of explained why they not moving further back. So I was wondering in this case, since you weren't doing it, why you couldn't, but okay, you've stated the well.
Yeah, that came up last time too, I believe, the well.
The well? Okay.
location, yep.
And I know, yeah, going into the hillside is difficult, but it can be done, but maybe not as far back as it would need to go to be fully compliant. So my other question was the garage roof and those elevations looked very tall.
So
And
about this area over here, actually, this area back here,
yes, I mean, it
that's
looked like
actually
it.
conforming in setback.
Oh,
Well, then, I'm just saying it stuck up above the roof of the rest of the house, it looked like, from the elevations. And I was just wondering why, I mean, unless there's there's a room or storage or something above the garage?
There is a storage above the garage.
It's actually
It's actually
below.
not
it's
as
below,
high.
yeah.
Okay, so I was looking at, go another one, I guess.
Go back.
I think it's perspective, yeah.
Yeah, it's perspective, I
All
believe.
right, let me,
Okay, so,
I'll go back to,
The elevation,
oh, yep.
right there. So it's below the ridge.
It's below the ridge. Okay, what I was looking at was the way it stuck out on the end, so go down one page. Yeah, okay.
The one
So
that's
it's there and there, okay. I just wondering why
6
it,
feet.
it needed to be so high, but, okay.
The gable's running in the other direction.
And that's more on the hillside too.
Is it actually in a retained, is there a retaining wall planned?
There will be either grading or a a stone wall put in there. We had the excavator and the project manager for the company that's putting the new house there, and they thought they would just need to have grading there. It wouldn't necessarily be a
So with
retaining
no
wall.
wall there now, how is the runoff working?
Not necessarily very well. There is a small stream on the other side there that carries most of the stuff away. We don't have any issues with water in the current basement.
Well, if there's a retaining wall, then how is water going to be dispersed?
They're planning on putting in a grading and a French drain, I guess, on the road side of the house there.
So, and how's that going to impact the lake?
Well, that's what we're having the lake shore person coming out to look at that over. And right now, there's we don't expect it to have any impact on the lake, actually.
Well, and do we need some opinion on that to issue a decision?
I think there's actually a shoreline permit you need to get or something, is that?
Yes, and
Yeah.
we're just
That the state gives?
So that's from the state, and this would hang fire on that?
What's the purpose of that, quote, possible retaining wall?
Just, I think that the architect put that in there because of the slope of the land, just to,
Away from the house?
Pull up the southwest model view. It's sheet, I think it's 8 of 10.
That one?
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so it sits quite a bit lower.
Looking at the photos of the existing house, I don't know that it would be that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
extreme, because
I
there's
think
no
he,
current retaining wall, and the house is the same depth as what you're proposing.
right, I think the architect put that in there just to kind of show where it was kind of sitting into that,
Yeah, it seems like if you could incorporate that and make the retaining wall the foundation wall, would be a much cleaner appearing and probably make the house less vulnerable in terms of just drainage conditions. You understand what I mean? Make the foundation wall such that it's doing the retaining rather than
which,
a separate
I don't know
retaining
enough
wall.
about construction, I'm assuming that.
Yeah, we're
the,
not meaning to give you advice. We're
No,
just-
no, that's, I will take it, yeah,
But it's good advice.
yeah.
I mean, I don't
From licensed professionals.
the grade, I don't think the grade of this lot isn't prohibiting you from pushing that building back.
Well, look back, at the,
Yeah, if
You
you,
can see on the roof line of the grade coming back, how the roof line's straight as it comes to the ground.
The eave.
well, I think if you look at the upper left one, that
So
gives
there's
a
actually
little,
2 levels on this one, right?
Yeah.
So the,
But it's not like it's a super steep
it's
hill.
not
It's
6
a-
feet, not 10 feet.
Yeah.
that's an interesting house right now, isn't it?
Mhm.
that was gonna be one of the points I was gonna make, that it would be a little more,
You sure it's not in the historic register?
1960s,
architectural
70s,
digest.
60s, 70s?
Could be.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's a very interesting house.
Mhm.
And
Was it Frank Lloyd Wright? Was
Frank Lloyd Louis, yes.
actually, we've
It's not
had
what
it
it is.
described to us as a motel. You know, with the railings on the side there, and
Does the existing house have a basement?
it has a half basement and a crawl space that's on would be the north side of the house.
It does look like an A-frame that could be at a decrepit or declining ski resort.
Yeah.
I think it was just an A-frame that
It-
ran into a height restriction.
Or something.
Yeah.
Is that an architectural term, a clipped A-frame?
Yeah. It's a different A font, I guess.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's true.
I'll say that I did have one realtor who's helping out somebody come to me, and another neighbor come to me and say basically they will be very happy to see this house go.
So I am a neighbor. I'm on the other side. I guess I'm on the north side. Which side am I on?
North side.
North side. So we look at that green roof that goes all the way to the ground. And one of those pictures that you see, that's our view.
Yeah, actually, so you're this property.
We are that property,
you're right.
yes. So we would enjoy a more attractive neighbor house
And what's there
Or more
now?
traditional.
than what's there now, yes. I'm sorry,
I'm
can I ask your name?
Is this Janie
Stacy
Carroll
Hanna.
country,
Yes.
or are we on the wrong
I'm sorry.
road?
Yes, no, it's on the same, well, it's not the same road down to the lake, but,
I'm sorry.
So
what
it's
was the
so it's a
question?
different
What
area.
was the question?
yeah, he's down the road a little ways,
Well, different road.
that way. He's on Pond Road,
Same
but,
road?
Which point you said?
No, I mean
Jamie
different
Carroll.
road going down to the lake.
Jamie Carroll.
Next, usually the next road.
He was my introduction 20 years ago to all these lakeshore properties.
He's on Shadow.
Shadow.
Yeah, Shadow Lane is, Shadow Lane is.
Oh,
up
there it
here.
is, right there.
yeah. Do the board members have any other questions?
Yes, you asked a couple questions about the height, not going to interfere with our view at all. So we don't have any objections to that, and we certainly don't have any objections to enclosing that front porch that was right there. Instead of the big, longer one, it doesn't, impact our visual or aesthetically cause us any concerns whatsoever. So we're very much in favor of their new design. We like it.
I'll just add, I'm Lisa Thompson, and we're in the process of buying the lot on the south side, the one right where the word drive is filling in, and we basically have the same comments. So the house sits a little bit higher, looks down a little bit, but the height does not cause any problems. Again, we would completely support looking at the new house instead of the old house. It is known as the Holiday Inn on the street.
I don't want to disclose, or ask you to just disclose state secrets, but are you going to be back before us for an application?
Someday, maybe. Not anytime soon, though.
And honestly, I can't definitely speak for him, but the Lampmans who lived there before, I think certainly would, in talking to him for many years, would agree that taking down that, our current house, and putting something that matches the rest of the homes on that road would certainly be acceptable.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? Board members?
Make a motion to close and direct staff to devise conditions of approval.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would not be.
Nay? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright. Up next is Patrick O'Donnell and Jim Donovan, site plan review on the Polly Quinn property. If you could just state your name and
Sure. Good evening.
give us a little.
Excuse me. I'm Jim Donovan. I'm a landscape architect and potential purchaser of 613 Mechanicsville Road. And my wife, Patricia O'Donnell, who's also a landscape architect, is joining me, but she had a change in her work plans and had to be out of town. And I don't think she's going to be back in time. And Nina Quinn is also here representing the estate, not the estate, the trust that currently owns the property. And we're requesting site plan approval for what is almost there now at this point. What I'd like to do is quickly just go through what we're requesting
Okay.
and see if there's any questions on that, and then quickly give just some comments on some of the concerns that staff had in their report, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
Excuse me.
Would you want, which of these pictures?
Probably I don't know if you can do them both at the same time, the floor plans. Probably the easiest thing to use. Because right now there's a main house, well, maybe the site plan would be good. I'm sorry.
All right, no, that's fine. This one or because this one here is really far away.
Yeah, maybe the one you had up there then is probably good because it just focuses in on the area itself. Because there is a 2-unit house at 613. It has a main unit that has 4 bedrooms in it, and it has a rental unit that has 2 bedrooms in it. Nina has told us that it has been that way pretty much since it was built in 1934, that it's always had a rental piece associated with it. There's also a mobile home on the property, which is over on the left side, 603. Both of those buildings each have their own sewer and water connection to the municipal sewer and municipal water.
Individual connection.
Individual connection. So there's one for the house, one for 613, and there's one for 603.
Town sewer and water. This is town sewer.
Town sewer and water, yes. So our proposal is to take 613 from a 4-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit to 3 2-bedroom units. And leave the mobile home as well. So there will be a total of 4 units on the parcel rather than 3, as there are now. And what we're doing requires almost no changes whatsoever in the building, because when Polly Quinn was alive, they needed 24-hour attendance and care for her, and so they made a private area for the person that was there 24 hours a day. What we want to do is take that private area and actually turn it into an apartment, make it an official apartment. And that would be upstairs. Downstairs, there's the main apartment, and then the other apartment would be, which is there shown on the right. And the only thing that we might be doing is changing 5 interior doorways from being Luan interior doors to actually more like exterior, good solid doors that you use as entrance into a unit. And I can show you on the first floor, the dark line coming down from the dean desk comes over, and about near the bottom, it goes over to the right and comes around, so that there's bedroom 1A and bedroom 2A are in the main house. There's a front living room in B and a back kitchen and dining room. And the stairway that goes up, there's a door into that back stairway off the deck, and then there's a door into that main unit. That would be one of the doors that we turn into a good exterior door. And then on the second floor, there's also a door at the top of the stairs, and that door would also turn into more of an exterior door, so that it's basically like an actual entrance into a building. Those are really the only changes we're thinking of. We might have to do one other change, and we're still trying to check with the fire marshal on this, whether we need to actually establish a second means of egress on the second floor that actually has a door and a landing and a stairs, rather than just out the windows. If we do, it will either come off of the kitchen, or if it has to be the living room, dining room area, which is that last room at the top left, and there's a little arrow coming out there. Or if it has to be further away from the stairway, we might put it down under what's called currently bedroom A. That would be a landing, and then a stairs going down the outside on the south side of the house towards the back. So that would be the only change on the exterior if we're required to do that by the fire marshal.
So the bed 1B, bed 2B, that's also on the second floor?
And those are on the second floor, but those are in the rental unit. So you can see the dark line comes along the stairs, comes down, hooks a little over to the right, and then comes out to the front. That's what divides the 2 units upstairs. So the one on the left would be a unit downstairs with 2 bedrooms, a unit upstairs with 2 bedrooms. The one on the right side, which has always been the rental unit, actually just has 2 bedrooms upstairs, and that's it. So it's a 2-bedroom unit now, and it will remain that way.
This is the first floor.
So no,
Right.
no kitchen facilities?
No, the kitchen is right there on the first floor. The large room in the back, kitchen dining, is there. There's an existing kitchen on the back on the left side, beyond the stairway. Where there's a little counter there, and then upstairs there's also a small kitchen already there. In the middle, between the living dining, which is up near the top, and bedroom A, in the middle there's a kitchen area. It has a small counter, and it has a stove, and it has a refrigerator, so it's already set up.
Okay,
So,
so the
again-
one apartment uses first and second floor, the other apartment just uses second, and the third apartment uses just the first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In the future.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yep,
that the
yep.
second floor will be an apartment, the first floor will be an apartment on the left side, and the right side will be a 2-story apartment.
Okay.
And all these interior configurations have not a lot to do with site plan.
No, yeah.
review.
No, but this
Yeah, I understand.
is the main change that's happening, because there's
Yeah,
really no change happening on the outside,
Okay.
other than
Unless it
residential
requires
stairs.
additional egress.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So, the only change that you'd see on the outside would be the potential of a stair coming off the south side or the left side of 613. There. And that's the only potential change we're proposing at this point. So, are there any more questions on that? And if not, I can go into what Mitch had as concerns. Let me sure I hit all the notes I wanted to. One, yeah, I think I did.
So a question for Mitch, I should know this, but when I first looked at this, I thought, well, wait a minute. I thought you could have 1 residence per property with a subordinate apartment. So this is because it's in the village, you can...
Because it's in the residential one, or if actually,
Okay.
any of the village growth area districts allow for multiple...
residents on one property.
Correct.
Okay.
There's no owner-occupied requirements, it's just allowable multiple residents.
For a quad, in essence, a 4-unit property, there wouldn't be. The owner requirement is when you have an accessory apartment, where the owner has to be another of the residents of the apartment. This may, and again, it was kind of an interesting question as far as what really is this existing, and doesn't quite fit the definitions for a conforming accessory apartment, but it does fit the, I should say the property as a whole fits the definition of a 3-unit property in a district that allows for it. So now they want to go from 3 to 4. They can go up to 4 with just site plan approval. If they want to go beyond 4, then they'll have to come back for conditional use or subdivision, basically. Where after this, they'll have to get a zoning permit for the actual use change. But right now, they need a site plan approval from the board.
Okay.
So the first, I'm going to sort of address his first and second concerns together. I'm talking about the parking and the number of driveways. There's obviously one driveway for the mobile home, but there are 2 driveways for the existing house 613. And they show up, there's one that's right in the front of the building. Yeah, thank you. And then the other one is pretty much more obvious off to the right side. Yeah, you know how to use it. And those are existing. There actually used to be 3 driveways. They had various different uses at times, and that it was reduced to 2, and actually the one in front of the building was sort of rehabbed and actually installed by the town as part of the sidewalk project. So it did all the work of actually establishing that back as a driveway parking area. We are using it now to put in the 2 of the spaces that we need in terms of the plan. We have 2 spaces located there, and there's 4 spaces located on the one to the north. And that makes up the 6 spaces that we need for the 3 units. There's a small stream that goes up to the property, and it has a setback, and almost all of that parking is within that setback. And what doesn't show up here is that also off of the screen to the north is wetland, and there's a setback that's pretty close, that we're pretty close to the setback for the wetland as well.
I'll show you on this, although it's a little hard to see on it. Probably zoom in a little bit on this if you want.
Oh, yeah.
So you can see the stream wetback, the stream setback comes in and then goes along where the canal is. It's sort of at the bottom of that slope, but the slope starts pretty much right at the edge of the parking area, heading down into that lower floodplain area.
But the driveway to the right, you also need that to
Access to
access
the
those 2 barns,
Yes,
right?
that's the access to the barns. And it became especially important again when the sidewalk came in, because now there's a retaining wall there, and the only way to get around them now is through that access.
Okay.
2 of the apartments are accessible from the right
The
parking
one
area.
apartment the lower apartment is accessible from the front.
left front.
There's a front door there.
Yeah, okay,
And the other 2 are accessible from the right.
the right, okay.
Because one would be, there's a door on the right of the building, and the other one would be from the deck
On the back,
on the back.
okay.
So they both lead into that parking area.
Are the barns tied to the rentals in some way?
They are not. They are one's a former horse barn, one is a hay barn, and we are not planning on making those accessible or usable by the people that are going to be renting. So right now, they're not really used for anything at the moment.
What is the planned use?
Pardon?
Is there a planned use for it?
Right now, there is not. And we would have to come back and get an approval for that if we wanted to use it for anything but a horse barn, I'm assuming. But it's built as a horse barn, it has no insulation, there's no real foundation, it's just a pole barn. So it would take a lot to convert it to some other use.
Okay.
So we are proposing to leave the 3 driveways to serve the 2 units, divided up as shown. Again, that's exactly what's there now. This is an existing condition plan, and we're not proposing to do any changes to that. And if there's other questions on that or whatever, we can talk about it, or I can go through the rest of the comments, or whatever you'd prefer.
I'm interested in the shape of that. There, I see the 2 parking spaces. How did that parking area and drive access on the lower left, that enters the house from the front, come to be? It's kind of an odd configuration.
I can address that.
Thank you.
So, Nina Quinn, the original driveway basically came straight in from the road to that entrance. When the town was putting in the sidewalk, and my mother created the senior apartment in the back, she requested at that time that, in essence, that narrow driveway be expanded so that she had enough room to turn a car around. And there's plenty of room now to do that in that driveway. So it's in essence more of an L almost from that.
Yeah, you could also park straight in
Correct.
and back around to the side where we've shown the parking areas and come out so that you're not backing out into the road.
So historically, that was the original access to the house.
Yeah, actually in 1934, that was the original entrance on that south side of the house.
And there is a drop in the curb in the sidewalk at that location that was added as part of the sidewalk installation. There's also one down at the other drive on the right side of the house.
Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the term.
Parking more to the upper side of that lot would just get you further from the road. One thing we usually, in this area, I thought it's still true that you don't want parking in front of the buildings, in front of the homes if you don't have to. Now, granted, you have to, but the way it's situated now, it's like right on the road.
That can be easily changed if in parking head in towards the house and backing the other way. Would not be an issue in terms of modifying it, because it's all just depending on how you do it and whether we mark it there. Whoever actually uses it is just gonna park the way they want anyway.
I
Probably.
basically park in the winter against the fence so he can plow this way, and in the summer I park under the tree for the other. So, and you can easily get 3 cars in that can get in and out actually on that side.
Okay.
Without backing at all into the road.
Gravel or paved?
It's gravel. Yeah, they're both gravel. In fact, actually, all 3 of them are gravel.
Okay.
Next, I wanted to talk about the landscaping. So that, now let's probably bring up that plan again. Mitch asked me to see if I could talk about that, so I went out and sketched what was there in the snow. I'm fairly accurate about most of these in terms of what they are. But there is a large cluster there's a cluster of lilacs just to the south, to the east, to the east of the parking area, screening the parking area. There is a large solid white fence in front of the house as well, screening that back parking area. That serves also as a screen for the parking area on the front when you're headed towards the village. When you're headed away from the village, it obviously does not help, but it does screen it when you're heading towards the village, because it has a return on either end. So it's along the sidewalk, but then it turns back and you can see on the right and the left. The left side is almost coincidental with the edge of the parking. The right side shows up a bit more. So it's a fairly good screen. There are 2 trees on the south side of the parking. There's a large birch that's been there for a while, and there's a small sugar maple that's been planted as part of the sidewalk plan. There's also a sugar maple on the other side. It's kind of harder to see because it's close to the, it's down,
It's
close to,
across the
right,
trees,
right, yeah, right there. And that was also planted as part of the sidewalk project. And they provide, as Nina said, shading, but they don't necessarily provide screening for that parking in that area. And we looked at that. We decided that we didn't think screening was appropriate in that area because most of Mechanicsville Road seems fairly open, and that in our eyes, the fence kind of sticks out as one of the few places where you really have a restriction along that road and you can't see into the property. And we didn't want to actually increase that by putting more screening on the other side. Because we felt that, especially in the village district, you want to try to have it be more open like a village rather than putting up fences and screening off the properties from the road. So that's why we did not propose any screening further on the other side of that driveway to complement the fence which is on the north side.
And the fencing to the left is that black,
Vinyl.
oh, that's vinyl, okay.
Yeah,
That's more vinyl.
it's wooden posts, and it's more like a grid open. It's not chain link.
I was thinking it was black chain link,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
not
further
chain.
down?
It's
Okay.
not chain link, but it's more of. It's like rectangles. It's an
Okay.
It's
open
a wire
grid.
fence.
Yeah.
Okay,
The black rectangle, the black chain link you're thinking of is the one that runs actually down the meadow.
okay.
Which
From
is
the
further
trailer
down,
south.
off of the
Okay.
plan, off this plan.
Mm-hmm.
In front of the mobile home, there's 2 sugar maples also, which are fairly close to the road, and then there's 4 birch trees behind that, and then there's a larger old fir tree up closer to the house. Because the parking there is primarily off to the side and behind the mobile home, we decided not to put anything further there, and because we're not quite sure what we're going to do with the mobile home at this point. My bet is that long-term, we're probably going to replace that with a better house at some point. So we don't necessarily want to put a lot of investment into it. It's a 1980s mobile home, so it doesn't have a lot of viability for long-term use. So we're going to basically just leave that as is until we decide, and we'll be back if we want to change it or whatever at some point, either for the zoning permit or if we do a subdivision and add more units or whatever. So that's why we're not proposing anything over on that side. So in essence, I guess we're looking to get the waiver that you're allowed to get to not have the screening and things like that you're allowed to give for landscape. Are there any questions on that before I move to lighting?
Well, actually, the thing is you do have a dumpster over here.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, dumpster, that was my next thing. I was gonna try to see if I could shift that so it was closer down behind the lilacs and screened by the lilacs, or else have to put some sort of a structure around it to screen it. But again, because we're in the setback, I'm trying not to do a lot.
Why is the dumpster necessary?
We'll probably review that,
So
but it's there now.
Yes, the dumpster was actually put in to share with 603, 613, and actually the Lane's house across the way. So we all just decided it was, lots of room there, we would put the dumpster there, and that's where recycling is. The units certainly, the trailer could have its own regular cans. It was more for convenience, too, with my mom as she aged.
Sounds like that can be something, can be rethought.
Um,
Seems unnecessary.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. That we can either find a place where it is screened or else change it so that we're not using it anymore.
Right.
And that could be a condition if the board wants.
Mhm.
Yep.
And then the last thing was lighting. Yeah, I just have not very many notes on the dumpster, that's right, I missed it. Lighting, right now there are 2 fixtures, 1 fixture by either door, and there's also a fixture up higher on the front towards the road and the right side of that building, which is the entrance to the rental unit now. and they're higher up, and they're basically just two spotlights shining out. None of them are downlighting, so we're definitely planning on replacing the ones at the two doors to have lighting fixtures that are conforming. Once we've made that change, we're going to see if we need the spotlights, or we need something up there. If we need something, we're going to replace them with conforming downlights as well. The other option is just to take them off and not have anything there.
Aren't there street
So-
lights along the sidewalk there?
No.
I don't think there are.
It's interesting. There is one across and up from us, but it ends up being relatively dark in front of the house.
Yeah, but along the sidewalk, there's none of the ornamental,
No, they didn't take them out that far.
And just the spots that are up are motion spots, so they do turn off on their own.
So the spots are intended to put light on the parking area?
The two
Yeah, as
parking
you
areas,
drive
right.
in, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing. If we feel that they're still necessary after we replace the down ones, we'll find something that works so that it's not, doesn't have the spotlight shining out directly.
I mean, would you be able to put a smaller, like pole-mounted light near the parking area?
Potentially.
Okay.
So we're definitely gonna get rid of all of them that are there now. And the question is whether we're gonna replace all four or whether we're only gonna replace two.
well, it seems to me you just have the burden of producing a lighting plan that works with our current regulations.
Right. So we're ready to make sure that they do not shine off the property and that they are in conformance with the town's plans and the town's regulations. So that was one thing that we noted initially as we looked at the place. One thing we have to change. And I think those were all the concerns you had.
What about the lighting on the mobile home, 603? Is there anything
Um,
non-conforming and?
There might be, I actually didn't look, but my bet is that there's another light fixture near the door. I don't know whether
Let's make sure we clean that up.
it's conforming or not.
So there's a light fixture at the door, and again, there's one on the corner that shines out to the
Out to
parking
parking?
area.
Okay.
And there's nothing down by the road there,
No.
lighting the entrance? Yeah.
I mean, for that one, if it's like on the end of the mobile home, given the proximity to at least the two parking spots that are shown, my guess is even a spotlight could be configured to be downcast and still put some light on that
Right.
parking lot, so. Or parking area.
All right, does board members have any questions? I'll open it up to the public. Anything else?
Dennis, I hear a deafening silence.
A lovely old house. It's been in
Yeah, it
Hinesburg
is.
a very, very,
It
very
is.
long time.
Yeah.
What year was it built, do you know?
So
34.
interestingly enough, the house was built in 1934. There was a creamery that stood on that foundation that was built in the late 1800s. It burned down in the early 1900s, so that the house itself is very unique, that it has a three-tiered cellar. My father was a professional photographer, actually in the second
wet
cellar. What was that?
Not too wet there?
No.
Not at all. It is completely dry. And if there's ever a tornado that comes through Hinesburg, that's the place to be, because the second cellar has a 3 feet reinforced rebar roof. The third cellar has I-beams. So it's,
Straight out of fail-safe.
and basically they built the house on top of that existing foundation. So it's a really cool house. We used to have fun building it.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and direct staff. I don't know, was there anything we had to
I
add?
don't think so, Steph.
I don't think so.
Hey, Mitch has been taking copious notes, I've observed.
Well, hopefully cool enough, but yeah.
So you don't think there's anything we need to add? Direct staff for approval,
Draft conditions.
draft conditions of approval.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, good luck.
All right, looking at lighting that dumpster and,
Lighting dumpster
And now we're on to other business. I don't know. Do you
Yeah,
have
just,
anything?
I'll just mention a couple of things. 2 weeks from now, we've got a, 2 weeks from now on the schedule, we've got a subdivision revision, one of the lots to the O'Neill subdivision, and a sketch plan application for property on, to create a new lot off of Bolton Road.
and Hannaford is 2 meetings from now, is that right?
Hannaford is 2 meetings from now.
So is there some opinion from the town, not the town attorney, but the town development attorney that may have relevance to this? Because I've seen some references, but I haven't seen anything.
All right,
Or is this something we should just await?
It's actually
As long as
already
we're on
on
the
the
record, maybe we-
Dropbox link to it.
Already?
That's been,
Yeah.
that's been advertised.
Huh?
Basically, the attorney has said that, well, it's two main things. One, that the review should be limited to the subdivision revision, stormwater, and traffic, and that the other things have pretty much been settled in terms of the courts. And the other thing that the attorney's opinion, and I'll just say opinion, is that it's the newer regulations that will apply, since these items which have not been settled have to be looked upon as in a new way.
Well, I mean, cutting to the chase, does that mean we have an interim zoning regulation that limits commercial to 20,000 square feet?
That
that
doesn't
right?
apply.
No.
Oh,
Doesn't
so
apply.
that's, okay, so then what are we talking about?
The subdivision revision, the stormwater, and...
No, I know that, but what was the second opinion, the opinion you were talking about? That you said we had to apply the current regulations.
Right, the current
But we have interim
regulation.
regulations.
There's no interim regulations.
I thought there was an interim regulation.
They were
Tried to, but it didn't go through.
Oh, I thought we talked about this a month ago and it had passed.
No.
No.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
No, the regulations changed in 2000. I don't
But
remember the
even
date.
if it had, they submitted the application before the interim zoning.
No, I know.
Yeah, so,
I get all that, and I guess I completely misunderstood what might be coming down the pipe.
yeah. And just one other thing to mention, at last night's select board meeting, there's actually now water and sewer capacity. Pardon?
4.
Well, it's 5,000 gallons, that's municipal, educational, institutional, special projects. 15,000 gallons for the core village area, and 13,603 gallons, and this is gallons per day, for the remaining service area. And Giroux and Besor, the Giroux Besor project has already gotten their allocation. So figuring in next month or two, we're probably going to have that application come in for preliminary.
This is sewer or water? Sewer.
This is water.
Water?
Sewer is similar numbers, except the remaining capacity, which I'm going to mention when we say remaining, it could still, that could still be applied to anywhere.
Where did this come from?
The numbers?
No, how?
I thought we were in a hiccup with the state.
It came from our, well, I'll just say it came from our utility superintendent. Who is,
So they found more water, fixed leaks.
a lot of it is that they fixed leaks. And a lot, I think the La Platte River is actually running a little less now than it did because of all the leaks that they found.
But I mean, what about the wastewater? I thought we were in a contretemps with the state there.
They're still on this type of level. under that amount that would kick in the next upgrades to the sewer.
I mean, could we build out Black Rock?
No,
Not build it all the way out, but
maybe
So-
phase one.
So there's selective capacity?
there is some capacity. And,
First come, first served.
How do we allocate that?
well, that's the select board to figure out. There is the BlackRock agreement for the new well.
Yeah,
That's going to be 36,000 gallons per
That's
day.
not wastewater, though.
That's water and they're under the impression that there'll be sufficient wastewater, at least for that first phase, and then go from there.
Freshwater follows Blackwater?
So Andy,
We'll leave it at that.
you know, I have to recuse myself on the Hannaford thing. So if you're around, that'd be good. And I think John does too.
Yeah, he has to recuse himself.
Yep.
And they may not be the only ones, but I'm looking to speak beyond that.
Maybe I'll just take a 6-month
Yeah.
You'll have an exciting summer.
Actually, I don't know. Do we have to recruit other people just to get a quorum here for it, or?
Why? Who else
to
needs to
adjourn.
recuse themselves?
Nah. Hopefully we'll have enough.
Okay.
Move to adjourn, Chairman.
Yeah, already said it.
Chairman G. Chairman for life now, huh?
We could probably figure that out.